Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hello there once again, welcome to our final play guide and review for this series. This will be Alfred Chicken. This was created by Twilight and released by Mindscape in 1993. During the introduction we can see that aliens have robbed our chicken eggs and it's up to us as Alfred Chicken to rescue them. The game begins with some cutesy introduction title music, and you can see Alfred Chicken is a registered trademark of Twilight, published by Mindscape International. There are a number of options which we can access from those titles, including switching the music on and off, I think, as well, and you can change, or at least listen to, some of the sound effects. You can check out the highest scores from here as well, and maximum number of retries. I think you can change that value as well. So let's just have that, well, maximum of 7 retries you can have on this game. Checking out those high scores, everything's blank for the moment. That's all done, let's press fire and let's check out the first level, which is a cheese level. In Alfred Chicken we play as, unsurprisingly, a chicken, and we can use the controller to push upwards to jump and can press the fire button to peck. And if we try to peck the enemies, unfortunately that isn't going to work. We'll have to dive bomb them, and that's one quirk of this game. You don't have a direct attack, you only have the indirect attack of landing on their heads. This is a quick warm-up try. You can see that I'm already struggling and I've just landed on someone's head, and that's unfortunately another life over. So luckily we can always press escape and return back to that title screen. And we can try that level all over again. On the screen we can see a score, and we can also see a balloon total as well. We've got 3 balloons to find. Those balloons are connected to anvils, strangely, and those are basically waypoints. I think if you press those, that gives you a waypoint in case you die. So we've got 3 to find on this level. And we've also got a time limit as well, which is counting upwards. And we've got a gem total of the gems that we've collected so far on this level. And finally we've got the lives. We've got 6 lives available to us at this point. And you can see that we can fly a little bit and at least glide a little bit down to those enemies, but the controls are definitely floaty in this game. Definitely one of the most floatiest controls that you'll ever find on an Amiga platform game. Above us are a number of stars, and they have switches to activate them. If they are highlighted with a kind of dotted line around them, that means they need a switch. That means we'll have to make use of dive bombing these platforms, and you can see the mice are already unfairly waiting for us on the other side, so you have to get ready with that dive bomb manoeuvre. And if you miss them, unfortunately, that's life over. You don't have any energy in this game whatsoever. levels in this game are quite large, but they're not huge, and they also have cut-through sections where you'll have to access certain areas, and in this case we need to press a button. Having pressed that, that means the stars are now filled in on the level, so we can now access those, and you'll have to make sure that the button is pressed in, because if you release that by mistake, that means you'll have to go around the whole level again to press that button. And I don't really think that the diamonds give us much in the game, but I definitely know that if you get over a score checkpoint, that gives us an extra life. I'm not sure if there are any cut-throughs, but you can see there is one hidden section over here, and sometimes these hidden sections lead to death, but sometimes they can lead to something a bit more extra special, like a robocard game, and in this one we'll find similar mini games. So let's check this one out. Apparently that will help us. It's a pot of jam. I've no idea what that is. And just like Creatures 2 on the Commodore 64, we can collect those bonuses in a special bonus room, and now we can continue with that level. So hopefully if we don't fall down, we'll just have to wait for a platform. I presume that there's one appearing on this spot, and the platforms take absolutely ages, but now we can see we have got direct fire, and that also gives us a bonus token for shooting using that mechanism. So now we can lob that at the enemies. Not that that goes horizontal towards the enemies, it will simply bounce around that screen. The aim of each level is not only to get as much score as possible, but simply to reach the exit. And usually the exit will be blocked in some way or guarded until you've gone around that level and collected at least those balloons up, and then I think that unlocks the exit door. I'm not quite sure, but you can see that we haven't got a time limit. That time ticks up for some reason, and you would think that we can ride on these balloons, but we can't. We can just release those. We've got one more balloon to find on this level, and we're still struggling on those 6 lives. So it must be up there somewhere, but how do you get there? There you go, it reveals the way up. So now if we follow the level around, and I'm not sure if the enemies stay dead once they are killed, but I think they're dead. And look at that, a watering can, that gives us another bonus. I'm not quite sure what that gives us, but maybe that gives us a bonus at the end of that level. And then the final anvil will give us not only the balloon to take us off that level, it will also give us a bonus section as well. We'll then get various bonuses handed out for everything that we've collected so far, and we'll also get extra lives as well. Found the watering can, that gives us another extra life, so that means we're back up to 8. Next on stage 2 we find a baby world, or as I prefer to call it, a toy world. And look at that. Mines floating around have killed us straight away. This Playguide and review goes out to Shawn Dimery, and I remember when he voted for this in the Lemon Amiga Games competition, I said something like it would be, you know, the end of the competition if this game ever gets in, because I didn't rate it very highly at the time, and I still don't rate it very highly now. And so this review goes out to him. He was the inspiration behind starting these Playguides in the first place, and so it's fitting that the very last review, or at least of this series, is dedicated to him. So thank you, Shawn, for the inspiration. might wonder that a chicken is pretty odd for a main character, but I listed maybe 50 main characters in Amiga games and I realised most of the animals have already been used up. So when you think about a squirrel, you might think about Mr. Nuts, or a dinosaur like Hoy, or a fox like Titus the Fox, or a slug like Steg the Slug. Basically everything's been taken up already, even an ant, a ninja ant has been used up. So what do we have left? Not much. We've got a chicken, and that might be a bit of an anti-hero having that as a stupid chicken, but it just means that we can flap our wings and fly a little bit, and that's quite helpful on these Robocod type levels where we get to go around and go through exit doors and make our way progressively through that level. So it gives us an option of 3 doors, and of course you have to go through those in the right order, which I haven't done, so maybe that would detriment us, but we seem to have some kind of protection device now, a feather floating around, and I'm certainly not going to risk that. I'm certainly going to kill everything the old-fashioned way, just in case that thing wears off. I think it's great that it gives us 1-ups periodically for certain tasks completed. So we're back up to 8 lives now, and you'll think that it gives us some kind of a platform that we can land upon, and it does, as long as we make sure that we land upon it, which isn't particularly easy. This game was also released in 1993 as an AGA version, which we're going to see a bit later on, and that contains some funky backgrounds, as most AGA platformers tended to do. They simply added a layer of parallax behind them, and usually that simply makes it more difficult to see the game itself. Company Twilight was founded around May 1990, and it was founded by Stuart Cook, Mark Mason, Jason McGann, Andrew Swan and Peter Tattersall. You might remember Twilight was involved with PAL Developments and High Tech. They were responsible for coding games like Rough and Ready and Atomant on the Commodore 64, and Yogi Bear and the Greed Monster. I certainly remember completing that on the Commodore 64, but unfortunately the Amiga conversion has the most horrific colour scheme known to mankind, so Yogi Bear and the Greed Monster is not as fun to play on the Amiga. And they also created games like Hong Kong Phooey and converted those onto the Atari ST, and they found their way onto the Amiga. So Twilight definitely has a legacy on the Commodore 64. They then reinvented themselves and changed their logo, which was inspired by Roger Dean, and moving on to the Amiga they converted Mega Twins and Live and Let Die, and in 1992 Twilight created Cool World for Ocean. So Cool World, a very tepidly coolly received production, both the movie and the game. There, Jason McGann, Andrew Swan and Peter Tattersall moved on to this game, and it was created by Jason McGann and Peter Tattersall, and Peter also created the code for Ikari Warriors that we've reviewed this series. Graphics you can see were created by Peter Tattersall and Wayne Billingham, and Peter Tattersall also worked on all those other games that I've just mentioned, including Cool World. the same team. Well, this was their last, unfortunately, Amiga game and their last 16-bit game. Unfortunately, I don't think Alfred Chicken did very well, and the team didn't produce much again after that. Of course, the music was created by none other than David Whittaker, and we've also seen David Whittaker games with music like Carry Command and Archipelagos, and even Menace that we've seen, just to name 3 that we've reviewed this series. The game can definitely be described as annoying in some parts, because sometimes projectiles land on our heads and we can't do much about it. Our character moves quite slowly and you have to do things by the book. That means you have to know where to go and what to trigger, and you'll have to learn the levels the hard way. So you can see this spiky thing, we can't kill it unfortunately, so we're going to have to make a leap of faith to get over those spikes, and huge spikes in this game rob our lives quite unfairly. So this one, can we kill this? I've no idea. But you can see we've triggered that switch. If we don't keep that triggered, then we're going to die. And this section is pretty hard because from now on we'll have to duck under the water and swim. So let's see if we can hold our breath, and it looks like we can. We gain an aqua lung and a mask, so that helps. And this underwater section is pretty novel, but by the same token, if we touch anything, we're going to die. The game has got different sections and different enemies and different things to think about. It's not just a standard platforming game, and some people say that this is more like a Japanese platformer than a Euro platformer, simply because it's got big blocks to jump around. Well, Japanese platformer, it doesn't really apply to Amiga games because there are only maybe 4 or 5 Japanese games released on the Amiga. All the platformers that were ever released were rip-offs of Japanese games, even Great Giana Sisters, which was a rip-off of Super Mario Brothers. That was definitely created in Germany by a bunch of Germans, so even though it might have been inspired by certain console quality platformers, this is definitely a Euro platformer. And Twilight were based in Harrogate, which is near York in Yorkshire. So this was definitely a bread and butter, beef and drippings kind of a Yorkshire game for those people that know what I'm talking about. But look at that button that we should have pressed, we now should have lifted that up so that we can get out of this level. And that's bad news because it means we're going to have to go through it all over again just to press that button. We can hopefully take the quick way to the start of the level by dying, and that's precisely what I did, but it takes us all the way back. So we're going to have to find our way there again, and well, do we press that button or do we release it? That's a mystery, and this game is definitely one of those which is something that you either know how to complete it and know the right way, or you fumble about it like me and make the game look very difficult. And I'm sure experts can get through this absolutely no problem, because this isn't a shuriken game. We're not being bombarded by enemies constantly. All we need to do is to make our way through that level. And I'm not sure whether we need to go through the underwater section. I'm just debating whether to go for the last balloons and try to complete the level the easy way. Look at that, enemies gunning us down. So we're going to try it again. Now we're going to release the button, and hopefully that is better for us at the end of this level. think this game was also released on a CD32 platform, although I'm not sure whether that got anything different to the AGA version, and I haven't got any magazine scores for that either. I presume they put some kind of an introduction on there, but I'm not quite sure. It could have been a shovelware release from the Amiga 1200 version. So Alfred Chicken is not that difficult, it's just annoying in certain sections and it's time consuming. You have to have that patience, and if you do, then you should be alright if you time everything to perfection. And on these early stages there aren't any pixel perfect jumps, although there are leaps of faith later on where you have to know where to go. So that's that section done, so that leaves this section, and now I've just flicked that switch. I don't have those anymore, which is probably a good thing. And now all we can do is make our way through this. We've got 2 more balloons to find, so if I can somehow, well, time this correctly, hopefully I can jump up there. No, I can't do that, that's quite annoying. So this game is spoiled sometimes by those quirky things, and when the player just wants to get on with it. Looking at the Moby Games website, I managed to find 1 or 2 extra bits of trivia about this game. Apparently Mindscape employed a number of publicity stunts to publicise this. One of them was to place a guy wearing an Alfred Chicken suit into the European elections, the parliamentary elections in Europe, as a candidate. And unsurprisingly, Alfred Chicken did not get a seat in the European Parliament elections due to that publicity stunt. So we didn't get that, unfortunately, but what we did get is this game, so now it's another bonus section. Maybe we can collect some of those extra lives that we desperately need. Great to see the flower at the end, and that reminds me of Wiz and Liz when we have to beat a flower. I think on the first level, one of the first level bosses I think is a flower, so in this case it's meant to be a friendly flower, and even though we're supposed to be a huge chicken, that flower looks like it's 8 feet tall. Made it finally onto the wood section, and again this isn't New Zealand story, we haven't got bombarded with enemies everywhere. But unlike New Zealand story, we can't get a balloon and fly around the level, which would have made this a bit easier. What you have is bombs that will blow up, a bit like Arabian Nights, and we'll have to trigger those. Once they're blown up, that's it, and they will fire off in various directions. Hopefully we can negotiate that level. You can see the graphics are a bit better drawn on this level. We've got a nice wood effect and screws buried into the sides of the level as well. So this reminds me of some kind of Zool game where we get a miniature character in a huge world. That block has got some kind of a skull and crossbones on it, which means maybe it blows up and maybe those don't respawn, so maybe this is one of the first times that we'll have to get those jumps right, and we didn't, unfortunately, so that means we died to go back again. And it's a pity that those waypoints are a bit spread out. It doesn't just respawn us where we died. Look at that. Typical. Another bonus fact that I learned on the Moby Games website is Mindscape had a toll-free number that you could call, and ringing that toll-free number apparently you could get through to a guy that said he was Alfred Chicken and spoke to you over the phone. So I think that was a recorded message that played, and I'm not sure whether anybody who read those computer magazines noticed that and actually called that number to hear a recorded voice message saying, "Hello, I'm Alfred Chicken, go and buy my game."
This is Alfred Chicken, Super Alfred Chicken. Alfred, help me find my girlfriend. Help me find the watering cans. That's a clue, kids. The watering cans. And look out for the mousies. Bye.
And we can't get out that way. So what are we supposed to do? Looks like we're going to have to make another leap of faith somehow. Unless we can go down there and down that gap. And it looks like we can. And that simply takes us back to the start. So I'm still no wiser how to get out of this level, but I presume if we can avoid these things blowing up, which reminds me of the things that blew up in Cosmic Spacehead that we've reviewed, and those things really are a menace. So how do you get through this? Well, maybe getting through that door, or maybe climbing up here. Finally, we've got some progress. So this doesn't really hold our hand like a Robocod game. It doesn't give us exit signs like a Turrican game. What it does is introduces the player to various things, and it expects them to get through it and memorise it bit by bit, level by level, the old-fashioned way. The way that everybody used to have to do it back in the day before we got the internet. Looking at the magazine scores for this game, they were quite different, and the low score starts at 60% from the Swedish Dato magazine, and Svenska gave this 61%, and Amiga Format managed to hand out 62%. They complained that it was an aimless game, they complained that it was a pointless game, and they complained about the poor controls. Well, the controls aren't too poor. I've definitely seen worse platformers with worse controls than this. They seem to function. Maybe they didn't like the way the character drifts and hovers the way around the map. It's certainly got a huge big jump, not as big as maybe Super Frog, but it's certainly got a nice big jump. And maybe the controls, once you get used to them, are perhaps the least of this game's problems. They gave this game 62%. Taking a look at the bigger scores, Amiga Dream awarded this 70%, CMVG gave it 70%, C Amiga gave it 70%, Amiga Power gave it 70%, even Amiga Joker gave it 72%, Amiga Action gave this 74%, Amiga User International gave this 79%. Recently, Amiga Addict awarded this game 80%, The One originally gave it 86%, Amiga Computing gave this 86%, Amiga Force gave it 87%, and Amiga Gaming Magazine gave this 90% in December 1993. So if you add all those up, it's definitely around about 7.5 out of 10. looks like we've found a unique tunnel section where we can collect some bonuses. Oh, look at that, moving platforms, again reminding me of Woody's World. And look at that, we can now dive bomb and launch down platforms. That's quite unique and quite good to see all that animation going on. I love the faces in the background and the tiles with faces on there and things like that, and the weirdness of this game in a kind of simple landscape. But those are the only plus points. It's pretty vacant and you go around the level just facing odd enemies time and again, and you can see this one we can't even kill it, so let's again kill that the old fashioned way. So there's nothing here that you can say is amazing, but I've got further on this than I did with Zool, where I only ever got to the second level back in the day because of a stupid keyboard that he had to press. And so it's got playability and it's definitely not hard. It's not one of those games that takes itself too seriously, although the stupid pressing buttons in and out and knowing which way to do them and doing that, it sometimes can be infuriating. The leaps of faith as well can be a bit difficult. I'm going to try this one, and yes, I've got it. And now I've died. I've just collected an extra life and I've just died. So typical for this game, it takes us all the way back to do all of that section all over again, which is annoying. So now it's back to the leaps of faith. Oh, that's the shield. So I like the leaves and things like that, but there is nothing in the background, and we'll see that that was fixed for the AGA version. It doesn't feel like we're moving through a real landscape. It makes it feel like we're moving through a giant landscape, maybe something from Fraggle Rock. This character reminds me of Wembley Fraggle, and huge landscape with stuff going on. So this game, well no, 2 buttons, we can now turn the starters on and we can turn the diamonds off. So that looks like a no-win situation, because we're going to have to try it. Let's swap them over and let's see if that does anything for us. Let's just do that. Well, let's switch them both on, that's a good idea. Will that help us? Will it help us get out of the level? And no, that's the exit, and it's now being blocked by 2 blocks that we now can't get through unless we go looping all the way around the level all over again. So let's just do that. And that's yet another one of the quirks of this game. But that's my time with this game. That was just a quick try of not having played this game seriously ever before. So I'm sure people who are familiar with it can get further with it, and I'm sure people who love this think it's amazing. So you can see there are 10 levels, well there are 11 levels, and it gives us a score for each one. So the long play is maybe about 2 hours, so it's not a short game, it will take you quite some time to get through it. So skipping on now to the AGA version, you can see there are blocks in the background which aren't too bad. They aren't too eye-popping that it distracts from the game itself, and you can see the basic game itself has not been recoloured. All they've done is added the background, they've not changed the block colours, and well, maybe they haven't changed the lift colours or the main character colour either. So yet again, a simple background for the AGA version. It does make it look better, I have to say, but such a gimmick doesn't really recommend spending extra on that. And back to the annoying platforms, which are always annoying in every platform game. So let's use the cheat codes to skip on to a later level and see what that looks like. And now we've got the same platforms, we've got books in the background, we've got the same snails, the same balloons, the same star blocks, the same buttons, so the format doesn't change from level to level, it's all pretty similar. So this isn't First Samurai. You won't have to go through tons of different levels and figure it out stage by stage. And look at that. The fact that we can't peck enemies is my #1 worst hate, because we've got a big beak there, but you can't use it, where you should hopefully want to use it against those enemies, which means we are virtually defenceless. And look at that, climbing on the puffs of smoke before they disappear and before we die on the mine that's floating around. So let's try to make our way now to the top of this level. We've still got 6 balloons to find. We know that's an enemy, so let's not bother with that. And an unhappy block there, oh dear. So we can maybe, well, if those stores were triggered, we could get through that level. So even on this level, we're virtually on the last level. And look at that, those blocks actually change. When we kiss them, we can kiss them into a different pattern. So no idea what that triggers, which is a bit difficult. And this is not looking good. It means we're going to die now unless we get out of here, which I haven't done. And that's a secret area that we've managed to find. So at least this game is not shy of giving us secret areas so we can make our way through it. Unfortunately this isn't moving, so that means we're going to die on these spikes. So that's my time and my play with this game. So that gives this game an average score of around about 7.5 out of 10. It's not the worst platformer in the world. It's certainly a lot easier than something like the Addams Family, which again was created in Manchester, so it's not a Euro platformer. It was definitely created just a few miles from where I live, in Manchester. So these games, Manchester and Yorkshire, they're northern grit platformers that we managed to get on the Amiga, and that's fine, but really this wasn't a showcase of the machine. Look at that, yet again we've missed the pixel perfect jump, and yet again we're sent all the way back. So that's my review. Thank you for watching this play guide, and we'll see you again maybe sometime soon. Thank you.